There it is.
How's it going?
What's up, man? I know it's late there. Maybe you fell asleep or something.
Yeah, it is a little bit late here. Yeah.
What's it? It's 5 hours, right?
Yeah. So it's 11 o'clock at the moment, and
All right.
I apologize. I've got a puppy literally 5 days ago, and she's only 10 weeks old. So if she starts barking, I'll have
Where
to go see what she's up to. So
where is she? Go get her. Go get her.
she's asleep at the moment. I really don't want to wake her up.
Oh, okay. So it's better.
Yeah.
At one of the guys' house where I go to, they had one dog that didn't work out. Same breed, but this one is only 4 months. Maybe now he's 5 months, but he hasn't been trained yet to be a guard dog. So he's wonderful. I can't imagine that when he gets trained to be a guard dog, that he will forget to be this perfect little puppy. Because the other one didn't. That one. So I remember seeing the list of words, and then the word the command to do what that dog was put on earth to do. It was not in English, so that you couldn't say it on accident.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
You would have to know what the word was, because it was like some kind of probably German or something Eastern European. So you'd have to try to say it. So, but he didn't seem to care about that word. He was going to do his thing no matter what. What type of dog is it?
She's a Labrador Newfoundland cross. So
it's gigantic.
Yeah. She's only 10 weeks old, and she's already like 6 kilos. So she's going to be a big dog. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Wow. So wait, Labradoodle and Newfoundland.
No. So Labrador and Newfoundland. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
So, because I've seen Labradoodles be like little, and then they stand up and they're like 7 feet.
Yeah.
But but then of course Newfoundland. The first Newfoundland I ever saw, I thought it was a couch. I looked off to the side. It was probably a darkish room at like a party, and it was like a very dark brown dog, and I thought it was like a shag couch in the house, and that's how big it was.
And they have roughly the same energy levels as a couch as well. So I'm good. I'm okay.
Very good.
Things have been pretty crazy with everything that's been going on, and the work has been interesting. The change in what I've been doing, and sort of pivoting here and there, and like I've not been out on European tour to any events for nearly 16 months now. So I'm actually going out next week. I'm on my first tour event next week, so I look forward to that. And and like obviously owning my own gym, everything's had to change there a bit, and we're adapting to the new situation. It's all, but there's a lot of opportunity now going forwards. Things are really getting very interesting. So but not going on tour, which is one of my favorite things to do, was pretty tough. But 16 months I think it's been since I've been out. So and it's one of my favorite things to do. So yeah, can I just say first, didn't you get married just recently?
Saturday.
Can I just say congratulations?
Yeah, thank you. We of course we were married maybe a year and a half officially, and we rescheduled the wedding several times. So this one it finally went off, and
brilliant.
So I'm guessing you saw some of the things on social media.
Yes. Yeah.
Like some of the so did you see the dinosaur?
I just saw the dinosaur, yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's okay. So you're telling the truth.
Yeah.
Like,
I thought the theme was very cool. Yeah, I thought the theme was very cool.
What I was telling folks was a couple things. Because of all the craziness that you saw, very few people knew everything. The only people that knew everything was like the videographer, the photographer, me and Allie. Like zero guests knew every single thing. Now, if they were involved, like when you saw Don do the marriage, of course he was in on it, but nobody else up there was in on it. I was telling people, so just imagine me and Allie's social media like coming to life.
Right.
What I was telling people the night before is like, in professional wrestling, the best characters, they're just themselves turned up to an 11 out of 10. So everybody kept saying 11, 11. You know, like it was common. Oh, the other one right before, I said 99% of what you see in professional wrestling is supposed to happen. So that was kind of like a little bit of a warning. And I think people kind of knew there was going to be some kind of shenanigans. I don't think anyone would have guessed that you would see that much ludicrous behavior. A 10-year-old birthday party with alcohol. Like that's what it was. So, hey, I'm gonna call you the big secret because you're a big dude. But I think a lot of people maybe either are very familiar with what you're doing as a coach, or some people are very unfamiliar. And I am guessing, obviously, based in the UK, has something to do with it. But social media breaks that up, and I don't know if that's it. But I think some of it has to do with a topic that I am very, very keen to discuss because I deal with it as well. Your knowledge and your affinity, and as you just mentioned, being on tour for the game of golf is paramount. It's exemplary. I don't think people know about this, and I think some of that has to do with physical appearance. And when I first became exposed to working in high levels of golf, which really is not at the level that you're at in terms of working with professionals. Folks don't understand, professional athletes of any kind don't typically live in New York City. They come to New York City for things, and my exposure to professional athletes in New York City is far more of when they get surgery rather than they come to train for a significant amount of time. So that's number one. And number two, through TPI, where because of the affinity to other models that I had associations with, once they gave me a platform, that was my gimmick, like in professional wrestling. I was the non-golf guy. And that is a message that comes off very antagonistically. I'm probably better at it now than I was maybe 7, 8, 10 years ago. Yeah. But I still believe 100% of what I say, to the tune that I think you can enjoy the game of golf without a collar on your shirt. I believe I don't understand these things. So let's talk about where we'll get into some training pieces. But I think I really would like folks not only to be familiar with your training approach and the book that you just came out with, etc., but also do you have to deal with these things? I mean, I've always been no, Charlie, say what it is, shake them up. Like let them understand that you don't necessarily need to have a $120 American golf shirt, which I have probably more than any one of these folks, because I just find that most golf fitness individuals that I'm familiar with, they just want to be a golf pro. That's it. Like instead of going to Q school and paying their dues and having the skill level to accomplish that, because they either don't want to do that or didn't do that, they find their role in this game that they love in terms of fitness. And I'm guessing that wasn't your MO.
No.
So go ahead. Let's talk. You do the talking now, Big Secret, and let's make sure people understand here that golfers are athletes, and I'm very confident that you believe that. Just because they wear expensive shirts and belt buckles all the time doesn't mean that they go by some kind of different set of rules, which I see far, far too much.
Yeah. So I guess you could say I came in as an objective outsider. I was brought in by someone a physiotherapist actually, who saw what I was doing with MMA fighters, and he had always appreciated that golfers are athletes. The fellow's name's Dan Coughlin, and he was based at England Golf. He saw what I was doing with MMA fighters, and obviously MMA fighters are pretty banged up. Golfers get pretty banged up. The confluence there was that they were seeing the same physio, and I got referred. and started working with a few golfers. He liked the work I was doing. That then led to subsequent opportunities. But Luke, a good friend of mine, Luke Mackey, who's one of the guys at Golf Australia, he's sort of involved in their S&C. He said, "You look like a man, the most threatening man I've ever seen on a driving range." So, you know, when people say stuff like that, I kind of know what they mean, you know. And yeah, it's a case of,
now remember, I'm only 5'4.5", but I get 6'5" real quick.
Yeah,
exactly. I can change my tone of voice. I grew up in the game of basketball. I can change my voice real quick.
So it's it's a case of you know, just you do have to subvert people's expectations a little bit. They think you know, they paint you a little bit as a knuckle dragger or whatever. You know, I'm 5'10", about 110, just under 110 kilos. So I'm not a small person, you know. And you know, when I get on the truck on the European tour, it's a pretty tight space, you know. And yeah, it's a case of I came to golf like feeling like an outsider. I hadn't really played the sport much myself. I'm a combat athlete by trade. That's my background. I've been doing jiu-jitsu forever, and that's kind of my bread and butter. And I love strength training in and of itself. It's something I've always done to help try and serve what I'm doing. So, having worked with MMA fighters an awful lot, you know, the point I always make is that a lot of MMA strength and conditioning is often absurd and overloaded. So I came into golf and everything is absurd and underloaded. And
yeah, it's a total opposite.
Yeah, completely the opposite. But they share an absurdity in that they both are trying to do things in strength and conditioning that don't actually serve the ends, so to speak. And you know, there's that lack there, that deficit. So basically, what I started doing was bringing what I guess would be considered kind of a meat and potatoes strength and conditioning approach that's been extant in other sports for a long time, but nobody was really doing in golf. And I took a good look around and saw what, you know, my contemporaries were doing, and it's like there's a big gap here, and that gap particularly is force production. Of all the lowest hanging fruit, that seems to be the one thing that these guys are lacking, and it's like high levels of low body force production. To make the point, actually, something that we did on Challenge Tour was we got a bunch of the guys together, tested them, and found good correlations between club head speed and isometric mid-thigh pull. So we actually did the research on our own athletes on the Challenge Tour, and found that the guys that were hitting it at furthest also had the biggest mid-thigh pulls. And you know, we were putting that together and saying, look, there's a definite relationship here between strength. I think it's nearly a 0.8 correlation if you want to get into the numbers, but definite relationship between club head speed and strength. Obviously not be all and end all. Golf is still a technical and tactical sport. Having high club head speed is only one element of the game. You know, guys like Bryson's, perhaps his inconsistency has proven that you know, you can have a super high club head speed. It doesn't mean you're going to win everything, but having a high club head speed definitely gives you optionality. You know, it gives you choice in terms of your tactical options that are available to you. Then the other thing, the unspoken benefit, obviously being a lot physically stronger, is you're going to be more robust, and you're going to be able to deal with the forces that we're getting in golf. And it's part of the reason why you know, the ETPI, European Tour Performance Institute, was set up, was because the physios that work in that service, you know, they were like, look, we need a referral pathway out of these guys just coming in and getting treatment all the time. And that's why the S&C service is now 4 years old, but they brought it in because they were like, look, we need to get these guys off tables and into squat racks. And that's kind of where we are now in terms of that stuff, is we're trying to get more of the guys coming through. And we've had some good developmental situations where we've had guys who play Challenge Tour, which is like a tour that sits below European Tour. And we've had two guys who've worked for me all the way from Challenge Tour. Just these past 2 weeks, I've had back-to-back wins with two guys who work on, and they're now playing on the European Tour. And these guys are exemplars of good strength and conditioning for golf. Grant Forrest and Callum Hill. If you look at the stuff I posted them doing, I joke, I say it's team push press, team jump squat. But that's the type of thing these guys are doing. Both of them have club speeds, you know, in excess of 125, 130. You know, and these guys are young, they're fit, and they look very different to the golfers that perhaps 10 years ahead of them. And that's kind of, you know, where we are now. Hopefully that makes sense. I know I'm rambling a little bit, but you know, hopefully that gets my point across.
it makes a lot of sense to me. What I'm hoping is, as we can exchange here a little bit, I imagine people that are, well, I was about to say dialing in or whatever it is to watch this, it probably makes sense to them too. If they're following you or I on social media, nothing that we're going to say is going to be shocking. But I'm hoping that as people, and again, I'm also very excited about the people that I could spout about. In America, golf was the only thing you could do because it was outside all during the lockdown.
Yeah.
And I look at, what they were doing, probably similar to how you think. I don't know that if they did not play golf, they'd be doing something completely different. There might have been, a couple things that were tailored to their physical limitations. If they tell me they want to rotate, I would like to rotate more, but I don't golf, on a regular basis. I don't play 18. I like just hitting. If I'm gonna do something for 5 hours, I'd just rather just hit the ball. But I'm hoping that they'll hear things that they can share with others that will be the light bulb to go off, to stop with this nonsense of that is still there. It's still the balance and this, because you hear it from clients when you get them. Now I get a little bit of a running start in these types of situations, because if I'm seeing someone from a therapy standpoint, there's a little bit more desperation. You're able to be with them a little bit longer and build a relationship. So then when you bring the proper, next stage and transition away from the rehab stuff, the thing is that the concepts of training don't change between, look, that's my whole gimmick, training, rehab, blah, blah, blah. But just because something was proper when you were in pain doesn't mean you need to keep doing it forever. There are some things that you would continue to do and continue to have value, but there's other things that need to be dismissed. What is good for a jacked up or painful golfer may have no role for a healthy golfer that has an ideal kinematic sequence and is hitting bombs and winning tournaments. That's where I see. I'm hoping, so it makes perfect sense, and I hope that there's some ways of phrasing things so people can feel good about, no, that's not how you're supposed to do this. Oh, but so and so does it. Well, I'm not worried about what do you want me to do? Like there's the use of stability balls. Oh, well, golf, you need balance, so we're going to do all this. Oh, my, well, that dude trains him, and him. I'm like, oh, my God, we're in freaking, like, where I live is got, like, is whatever percentage of the elite golf in the world. There's a pretty good chance that so-and-so is going to walk into your golf gym, and because you're super charismatic, you're going to hit it off, and now you wind up training one of the best golfers on earth with your nonsensical stuff. Now, that being said, when we look at elite golfers that we know their names, and we're like, well, he does that, because we see that in every sport. Like there's basketball players, there's American football players, whatever it is. I just, for folks that are logging in on your side, I was talking to somebody today about, when I was the summer I spent with Manchester United, and how under that group we actually were talking about building spaces where they built their new facility, and it was almost like they were only using almost a third of the gym. And I had to explain that in soccer, in football, we call it the weight room, you call it the gym, etc. And we look at if you look at what's then Mourinho came in, and it's like a closet. It doesn't do anything because he doesn't want to train at all. But I think it's important to look at, when we look at elite golfers, if we're going to look at what you mentioned, Bryson, you mentioned a couple guys that people have to look up, but are some of the best golfers on earth, because if you're making money, you are one of the best golfers on earth. Let's look at every golfer that also did that and failed miserably. That's only fair. Like, you can't just tell me all the good things that happen. You also have to tell me, if you're going to talk about like stuff that has no grounds in any science, and you're going to use the rationale, well, that you have 2 of the top 10 golfers on earth doing your nonsense, I need to see the entire list of every golfer you have ever trained that did this foolishness, and let's see how they all did. Don't just tell me the ones that worked. And that is, now I might be coming off some kind of way because I feel very strongly about that stuff, but I just hope that that's something that people should talk about with their clients. Like, oh well, so and so does this. You have to deal with that, because if somebody's a very traditional golf fitness approach, doing RDLs. Well, I know you got all bumper plates, so I don't know how you're trying to fool people with that. But handling big wheels is like, oh, I don't want to get big. I don't want to. Let me get out of here. So that's you have to deal with that. You have to.
Yeah.
So what are you telling those folks?
So yeah, I tell you what, it's a couple of things that come together in the way I see it. It seems to me that like you touched on at the start, a lot of golf fitness professionals, it's almost like they've skipped the strength and conditioning orthodoxy and jumped straight to your TPI or whatever. And it's almost like there's that gap in lack of basic understanding of fundamental strength training, lack of basic understanding of the craft of basic barbell work, like how to do squats, deadlifts, Romanian deadlifts, this type of stuff. And then that's lacking. So the other thing is, because golf gets quite medicalized, and most golfers only become interested in looking for physical interventions once they're hurt, their first port of call is a physiotherapist. Now, if you're a private physiotherapist or a private PT, and they're paying you a lot of money for that service, if you're a good professional, you'll refer out possibly to a strength and conditioning expert at the end of your pathway. But a lot of them want to hang on to them as clients, I guess. I don't want to cast aspersions, but then what you start seeing is people using rehabilitation tools as performance tools, which is obviously a misapplication. But when that's all you know, that's what you're going to throw at people, right? So if you start using that type of methodology divorced of its original rehabilitative context, that's why we end up at the point we're at, where people are doing all this type of stuff, because at a lack of understanding or a lack of ideas, this is what people are doing. The problem with that stuff, and you can say names of golfers, for the guys I work with, we have objective information about their performance output. And we know that obviously, again, club head speed, ball speed are probably the two things that strength and conditioning can impact meaningfully. If those numbers aren't improving and you reckon that you're improving club head speed, ball speed, then I ask the question, well, what type of training are you doing to support that? Can you see, show me that your intervention, your strength training intervention, whatever it is, has then led to improvement in club head speed or ball speed? And those two things should tack together ideally, if they're improving. Obviously, there's a ceiling on that, but we usually see once someone does a meaningful strength training intervention, particularly when it's sort of high force component, we see club head speed usually jump pretty significantly in the first sort of 3 to 6 months. And then you can start monkeying around with specific speed methods, that type of stuff. We do a little bit of that type of thing. And yeah, it's just that type of training generally just get ducked, I think, through a lack of understanding. And the other thing is this. I've known coaches who've basically been, they're so injury averse, they're worried about programming that type of training, because they basically, it's almost like obviously I don't want to do any harm to the athlete, I don't want to take any risks, but obviously meaningful change comes with some sort of risk, and you've got to be able to balance that, and you've got to be willing to push these athletes, at least somewhat. And I think it's that risk aversion, because you're dealing with potentially in some situations an athlete is worth a lot of money, that fear of like any soft tissue issues coming through training. I've had guys who've had like a little bit of DOMS, and they report to me, oh, I'm hurt. And it's like, no, you've just never trained hard before. And you have to almost educate them the difference between, say just a little bit of stiffness, a little bit of soreness. And, I've got a few guys now that actually like a little bit of tonus for their golf. They get used to that sensation. They actually get used to the feel that the lifting perhaps gives them. Because this is another thing that we can maybe touch on, is these guys probably do too much mobility, flexibility work. It's an obsession. I've been in change rooms before and seen guys warm up for 40 minutes to half an hour before they head out onto the range or head out to play. And it's like you're just wasting a lot of energy, really. And these guys are spending an awfully long time just doing mobility routines. I don't know what you think of that, if that's what you see where your guys are, but there seems to be, they've really caught on to the idea that mobility is very, very, very important, almost to the extreme.
but I take no exception with anything. I might ask you to dig deeper if TPI is of interest, because I don't think TPI equals all those things. That's my opinion. I think at a surface exposure, I think that's a fair statement. But talking about lifting heavy things for very keen purposes is certainly something that TPI would be very akin to. But given the Switzerland nature of TPI, I don't think they're going to be as vitriolic as I will. I won't even speak for you in that space. But if you're there, like, Greg, what do you think of, or ask Dave, like, what do you think of, this big dude out in the UK who's looks like he's got like 600, 700 pounds, because they don't know, people don't even understand what they're looking at. And they're like, no, I'm very confident. They would say, no, that's a very good thing when placed and loaded properly, and coached, et cetera, et cetera. Everything else is not only a reality. I think that's a reality in a lot of professional sports and in the general population. I think we're still in a generation of fitness where it's like this, it goes like this, and then it goes like this. So, you had the standing. Well, look, we just talked about it. Standing on stability balls and doing one dumbbell press. I remember one of my proudest moments in the NBA at that time. As long as your weight room in the arena didn't make you go through the other team's locker room, like in Indiana, you couldn't do it. It was like a courtesy. And I would love when the Phoenix Suns would come to come see us, because all my players would laugh at them. They because they're standing on one leg and Grant Hill's doing this and all these great stories out of Phoenix. Now, what they did very well was work together as a unit. Where 1 + 1 + 1 = 5. When you have three, any level of competence, it's greater. And they had all their players doing things, which is better than any program. But what they were doing was silly. They were doing like recovery workouts all the time under the guise of strength. And I would like to actually see the numbers. I know what my numbers were. I don't know what theirs were. Just because Grant Hill had this epiphany doesn't. Not allowed to talk about Grant Hill if you don't talk about everybody else that didn't necessarily do well. But like my guys would look at me and be like, they're like trying to make eye, like knowing that we would be joking them out in a fun way. And there's a lot of other really good stories that would come out of when the teams would come together. Oh man, I remember the story with Shaq was really fun, but I know it's late there, so we'll save that for another time.
Yeah.
So you see it in all sports. So you went from that, and then that probably born into CrossFit type of training, that just incredibly ludicrous, intense types of things that was void of significant intelligence. High intensity training, by definition, has value. I'm sure there's a better way to do CrossFit than how I see it commercially. Training. So I want to make sure that that's clear. And then that spurned into, well, because people were so injured. Now I can't even think. If you ask me to say whether I agree with them or not, whether I like what they do or not, what are the top 5 most popular continuing education courses? And every single one of them would be some kind of, morph from a healthcare provider, physical therapist or chiro, teaching some good things, some things totally also absurd and void of any intelligence. But they're all these non-stimulative rehab types of things. And I don't think it's isolated to golf. I think it's just where things are going, and then you add all of these cultural things that golf brings, and then it makes it even harder. It's like either really easy, or it's just like, I don't even know how to get into this conversation, because I'd like to think that and I would say this about other people as well, but I'll say it about myself. I'm good at explaining to other people how I'm right. I am not good at explaining to other people how they're wrong. It's like, so if whoever gets to them first is, it makes it easy. So the issue with mobility is that there's a point, and in golf, because measurement is so culturally acceptable, and believe it or not, there's a lot of very good golf professionals that now I deal with quite a bit that are not in favor of measuring things. I don't really understand why. As I get to know people, I'd prefer to focus the conversations on positive things. I'm not an idiot in terms of building relationships, but I find that very strange because in other places they'll put everything up on you and measure you and do TrackMan, etc. You should know if you have enough mobility for a good swing, and you should know if you have a good enough swing based on your kinematic sequence. And the thing
we're agreed in that regard, then,
Yeah, absolutely. Where I remember seeing this in the Marine Corps. I was like, first of all, that's like the epitome of like what they call functional training is going hard, lifting heavy, because it's functional because it carries over. Okay, so we got out of one place of calling it functional because functional just means purposeful. But what can I do with dude? How about just touch your chest when you bench press? How about get up over the bar when you do a pull up? Hold your arm all the way overhead when you do a Turkish get up. That's the mobility that you probably require, and it's the correct way, particularly if you use slow movements, which might antagonize a little bit of what we think should be training for a rotary power sport, because when you train slow with healthy tissue, you can use lighter weights, and so you can mitigate risk to a degree, but still focus on the connective tissue rather than the contractile tissue. The more ideal, the more robust your connective tissue is. I've talked about a lot of the NBA studs that I deal with, where 6'9", 265 pounds. I'm happier if they can front squat one wheel, but go all the way down to parallel, touch something, and come back up. Well, how does that? Because we're not working on getting them stronger. That individual can already do whatever he's going to do. So I can apply a cost analysis to our front squat. So could I get him to a 3 wheels front squat? Of course, but you have to pay for that. You have to recover from that. You don't have to recover as much from just using moderate to light weights to train for connective tissue when you already have exceedingly high qualities of attack. So in your case, you're talking about mobility. Just put mobility into something else and load it. Now you'll train the connective tissue in the direction and in the angles of the mobility that you already have. I can think right now I have a very accomplished young lady that I work with, and her mobility is pristine, and it's like now the time is to pick up that heavy thing over there, and she's into it because it's also some of the best stories I have in terms of, for whatever the reasons, that intense strength training was averted. It was with females, young females, older females. It's empowering to them. Somebody finally told them that it was okay to do, and there's a lot of stories that we can talk about there. I think the one thing that is interesting, you've talked about the mid thigh pull, and maybe we can finish up with this because I know you got to rock. The mid thigh pull and a lot of the barbell lifts. My study, again through what I've learned from TPI, when you look at the kinematic sequence, you can actually decipher where that individual gets the most power out of their swing. So as long as you have the correct order, that's one thing. And I'm sure there's people that disagree with that. I think there's enough data to say your golf swing can look a lot of different ways, but the ones that go straight and far all have a very consistent sequence. But the vertical thrust is just 1 out of 4 of the possible areas. The others, and I'm going to ask you, how you see this and what you would do to train it. Rotation, the chopping pattern, which is separate from rotation, and then the hands. So you may find that the way someone swings, they get way more juice, like a long drive guy from here. So now we need to use the same strategies of mobility first, strength second, power and endurance third for the wrists. So we got to get action like that. I don't know that mid-thigh pull would answer that call, but if you take somebody who's undertrained, you're going to get juice out of every squeeze. Do you see those things, and are you looking for them?
Yeah, I think that's what you're seeing, is because most of these guys are so underpowered anyway. Most of them get something out of sort of high force oriented training, because when we test them, we do a comparative analysis, so we can show them where they sit against other players. So that is one thing, and then we know roughly where they sit. And then the other thing we're looking for is counter movement jump impulse, and we're looking at that too, because there seems to be a good relationship between club hit speed and counter movement jump impulse. But then the other things, like you mentioned, rotation is obviously super important. I use a lot of ballistics, so we're doing a lot of med ball work, that type of stuff. And then basically, the way I pattern the med ball throw is basically the lighter the implement, the more like a golf swing we try and make it look. The heavier it becomes, the more of sort of a toss or a lob it becomes. But with the lighter med balls, we pattern the feet in the same way you would through a golf swing. So we're looking for the same level of internal rotation, that type of stuff. And then we're also looking for good torso movement as well. And if you go through some of the videos I've posted, you can see the guys working on that and trying to pattern specifically in that fashion. And then the other thing we'll do a lot of is a lot of rotary pulling and a lot of rotary pushing. So we make sure they're getting in and out of T-spine position on a lot of their upper body work. Something I've learned from Alex Krzyzewski, for instance. So he taught me a lot of that, getting them rotating in and out of T-spine on different movement patterns. And you'll see we use a lot of flywheel, so we really like the flywheel for that type of stuff, because they can do their cheat row and like a cheat push as well, and that way they're loading through T-spine that way. Now you talk about wrists, we use a lot of supination pronation type exercises, a lot of bam bam, so levering, that type of stuff. So we try and train the forearm in a number of different directions. I'm lucky because I work with guys who ride superbike and obviously guys who do jiu-jitsu. So grip strength is very, very important to them. We train wrist and forearm in a number of ways. Also neck is the other thing we probably do a lot of in golf, because we see a lot of guys pull up with neck issues. So we're doing a lot of neck training that we use with like some contact athletes, for instance, because we see a lot of rotation, obviously, through C-spine as they're swinging some of the rapid head movement. Next day they wake up and it's like, oh, my neck's sore, my upper back's sore. So, we're implementing a lot of different training methods that you generally don't see, which is grip, and that again, supination, pronation type strength training, levering, that type of stuff. So we're throwing that in as well. But in terms of pure rotation, a lot of it comes off med ball work, because we know, for instance, that med ball tosses, particularly rotational tosses, again, good relationship to what we see happening with club speed, ball speed. And it's again that question of most of these guys are generally so undertrained that for the most part, very conventional strength and conditioning works super well from them. And then once we build that good base of strength, good base of ballistics, then we start doing the speed stick work that I don't know if it's become quite popular very recently, because people are hunting for extra miles per hour on their swing. So we're doing a lot of integrated speed stick work, either dosing it very, very regularly, or using it as an overspeed method, or using it as part of contrast complex sets as well, where we're doing some conventional like jump squats, that type of stuff, and then we're doing speed stick work. But again, back to your past point, we will take a look at swing kinematics, talk to their golf coaches and ask them what they think, what positions they need to work on. So, for instance, I've got a guy who swings 130 plus, and his golf coach came to say, I think you might be able to get more actually if we help him with his right side external rotation, because he's a little bit tight there. So we'll talk to the coaches, we'll get feedback on what they think should be done. Because at the end of the day, I respect the fact I'm still a strength and conditioning coach. I don't know, I'm still learning about golf. I've only been in it a little while, but just trying to build up my understanding of the pattern itself and what's the lowest hanging fruit for most of these guys is still, high force, high velocity type stuff. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, and I also think that you probably know quite enough about golf to know if a golf pro is a goofball. So, and that's I'm sure that happens far too often. Hey, last idea when you said that there was a ceiling to some of these things. I am very, very favorable, and I can think of somebody, high level guy that I just gave this advice to. I'm like, how about we eat a little bit? Even if you put on weight that is not ideal lean mass, we can say that, okay, that's not a healthy thing to do. But if we understand that as long as whatever weight you put on, it does not affect the kinematic sequence, I have every reason to believe that the ball is going to go further. Force equals mass times acceleration. Now, I would prefer to put on lean mass, ideal contractile, but no matter how you cut it, you're not. And then people look at me and like, well, look, you're not going to get a chest. You're not going to bench press 600 pounds. Like, that's not how this works. So I have to overcome a little bit of that negative credibility. But I think for a lot of these guys to put on even 12 pounds, 5 kilos. The ball will go further. I mean, that's how this works. Force equals mass times acceleration. That's where if everything is perfect and they're in the top, whatever percentile in the key qualities that you're looking to train, the one that's always on. You see a lot of fat pigs out there, hitting the ball really far. There's a reason for that. Like now their training is probably going to be impacted by work capacity because they're fat, but they can still hit it once really, really far. So I'm not advocating to become a piglet. I'm advocating, 5 kilos, 6 kilo. I think that can make a big difference when you're at very, very high level, where the squeeze is not getting much out of it anymore.
Yeah, I think it plays into robustness as well. I find that the guys who are carrying a little bit of mass generally also a little bit more robust. It definitely helps them wear a lot of sort of soft tissue issues better, in my opinion. But you're definitely right. Like the being heavier, that little bit of muscularity can go a long way to improving that anchoring effect. They can offset that rotation that they're trying to generate. Because I don't know if you've seen a lot of smaller guys with high club head speeds. Quite often, they're having to get tons of separation to do the same thing bigger guys are doing with less separation. So yes. I definitely think that being bigger gives you the ability to be more efficient because you don't have to create as much separation to preserve, to generate as much angular momentum on the ball.
Here's my rationale, and we'll finish with that. Force equals mass times acceleration. So if we add more M, you should get more F. I mean that no one's allowed to argue with that. Okay. Now again, that is under the caveat that whatever mass you put on doesn't affect the skill of your swing, which is not that hard to do. Okay, you're not going to turn into a professional bodybuilder, from doing this. Okay, so now what if we're just looking for this robust piece? We're not really looking for more force. We're just looking to have this very, very complete approach to be able to enjoy the game of golf for 12 months, or hang on and finish 30th and make $25 million or whatever. The money is great as long as you're keeping your card. Well, if you don't want if you're going to have a high level of acceleration through separation, through rate coding, all these great ways to train. Well, what if you put on some M, more mass, and you don't accelerate as much, and you're happy with your same F? So instead of here, you go here, and it's the same. Well, in my contention would be that if you, and this is what I think you are seeing by what you called grounding and other things, if you don't have to accelerate as much, you're still happy with where the ball goes, that means you don't have to decelerate as much, and your connective tissue robustness doesn't have to grade out as high. If you don't jump very high, your patellar tendon isn't going to get beat up. It's when you land from when you go, or it's that counter movement. So I think now the best thing is increase mass and increase acceleration and dominate the world. But I think there's an interesting way to look at that ceiling, but also how to preserve those things. And it's a general population; they might already be a little overweight, so it's not a big play. Yeah. But for the studs, to be a great golfer, you typically look a certain way, and putting on a couple pounds isn't going to get you into an XL, collared shirt. You're still going to wear your little large. So it's or you could wear like the shirt that you were wearing in that picture you sent. Is that the logo of your gym on there?
No, that's a jiu-jitsu rash guard. So it's a company that sponsors me. So I quite often wear their stuff in pictures.
Well, jiu-jitsu to me is cheating because as a collegiate wrestler, all these moves are illegal. So that's and so I almost went when I moved down here to Florida. I almost went because America Top Team has these franchises everywhere. I make a phone call and like, oh yeah, you're cool. Except, I just want to wrestle, and I got some cool stories too because remember at 5'4", 190, 200 pounds with collegiate wrestling, like I know what I'm doing, so I could be one of the gauntlet guys. I'll be like, as soon as you put me in that move, I'm leaving. Like, I'm out of here. Because guys, my 150 pounds. So I'm a unique training partner, but I'm only going to wrestle. And I learned that Taekwondo is not really of use in MMA, and I didn't understand why. I'm like, yeah, because when you're up in the air trying to spin around, I'm going to tackle your ass. I'm like, I'm done. I'm cooked. All right, man. Hopefully we didn't do too long here. I really hope, where do people get the book? And let's make sure everybody has your handle. We'll make sure that it's down below when we put this on Instagram and YouTube. Let's make because this isn't charity. You're doing some awesome work. But when you see some things that actually push the narratives that I feel strongly about, and you look like you can handle some real wheels, I want the golf community to see this. So how do we how do people see more of what you're doing?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter at WS Wayland. I'm on here at Powering Through. Obviously, if you want to get access to any of my stuff, it's the link tree on my account. So if you go there, Big Hitters Manual, which is by me and Terrence Kennel, who works in baseball, and we've got 2 of those out now. And if you want to check out that stuff, articles on Simply Faster. And then obviously check out the ETPI as well, who I work with, and we post lots of good information, lots of good stuff for golfers, and you see a lot of the approach that we're using on the European tour as well. So be sure to give those guys a follow.
Yeah, I think there will be. This is the first step in how we get some exposure to you and some other folks that get on that little list. And if that list needs to be bigger, because there's a lot of really great people out there, hopefully the people can decide to do that whenever they make that little list again. So hopefully it's a good first step.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Charlie.
All right, man. We'll see you soon. Well done.
All right. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.